So effectively, I'm kind of making my own ETF here on my dividend investing portfolio with M1 Finance, and I'm gonna kind of just like walk you guys through my actual account, which you can see here on screen. We just kind of switched over here to it. Now, obviously, if you've been watching along here on the channel, you kind of understand how this portfolio is set up, but I want to kind of explain a little bit of like my thought process and how it's moving forward, and how I actually got rid of one of the very popular ETFs, which was following the S&P 500, and just kind of going based off of this. Now, part of the reason for it is because I'm actually already invested into some ETFs with my Vanguard portfolio, which I showcase here on the channel. That's my retirement stuff. So it's kind of like that set and forget, where this is a little bit more active for me, so you guys can kind of follow this stuff along. I'm personally using M1 Finance. That's the platform I love using for this kind of long-term dividend investing format, which if you guys are interested in checking them out, you get a $30 bonus for using my link, but also supports the channel, so you get more free stuff just like this, which I think is pretty cool. I'll also have a link for you guys down below too if you're interested in learning the tutorial stuff step by step on this. It's actually part of my main channel, but I'll kind of give you the whole setup of making sure you know from like A to Z how to utilize this platform. But beyond that, I want to kind of understand why, or help you understand why maybe using M1 to create kind of like your own ETF is kind of a really cool thing. So we're going to kind of just take a look at some of the stuff here on my portfolio. I'm going to actually shrink down even more. Hello. And we're going to kind of go over some of this stuff. So you can see here, my current portfolio is at $30,800. That actually stemmed from putting $100 into this portfolio and starting off with a small amount every month, which is what you can do too. If you could do more than that, than what I did to get started, even better. $1,000, bam, like that's going to be great, which is actually what you need to get the $30 bonus. But nonetheless, if you can't do 1,000, just do whatever you can. So I just kind of like to, explain that to people. Over the last day, my portfolio didn't do as well. It was actually down $256. I like showing that because things go in the red all the time in portfolios, and I think understanding them and going through them is really important, because I see a lot of people who are investing into like GameStop stock, AMC stock, all this other stuff, and they lose a lot of money in a very short amount of time, and it gets them really sick to their stomachs. So those are much riskier things than what we do here on the channel. But nonetheless, hopefully you guys are learning from those if you did that, or if you haven't done that, good for you on that end, if you didn't want to get into that risky stuff. For the last week, this portfolio has done $211. The last month, $2,259. Last quarter, a little bit less because it's kind of fluctuated. So that's $2,200. And in the last year, it's about $6,046. So that is pretty cool. If I go to the all-time here, I like to show this again. I started with $100. That's all. That's all I started with, and then I got more comfortable as I went along. So, you can do that as well too. And then you can have a portfolio that kind of looks like this. This is what I set up with my account. I created all these different setup of portfolios of different sectors into my portfolio, so that way I can group things in different areas, see how they individually perform. As an example, we're in our all-time tab. So if I go over like the last week, I can see like in this last week, okay, well, my financial sector and my real estate sector haven't performed as well as everything else, and I can go into those ones and see what's causing that. And I personally like doing that. And in the link I'll have in the show notes down below, that'll actually show you guys how to set all this up too, if you are curious. It's some older video, so things might look a little different, but it does take you through that step-by-step process of making sure you make everything look nice and neat for yourself here. And this is what kind of causes me to have an ETF of my own. Like I mentioned, I actually started off this portfolio when you saw that $100, $90 of that, so about 90% of my initial investment went into an ETF because I wanted to be very cautious with how I was investing. And I'll show you guys here right now. So this was January 23rd, 2019, 3 stocks or, funds that I bought into. VOO was the stock that I bought. That is an ETF. Put in $90, and then I kept investing into that and then some other ETFs for a decent amount of time until I got comfortable enough to say, you know what, I don't need that stock or fund anymore, and I just will go ahead and invest in the companies that I would like to have, which are these 24 holdings. Now, I've shared with the stocks that I have. You can see a good chunk of them here. These are stocks that I believe in. These are stocks that I've done research on, but for the most part, This effectively is its own little ETF. You saw back over here in the main section of the portfolio, we got tech growth. Even though it's not really a sector, it's just the companies I feel have some of the greatest potential for growth still, even though they're not as risky as some of the other big stuff out there. Some people are, really focused on that high level of growth. We got retail, we got industries and energy, we got finance, we got real estate, and we also have health as well too. So those are the different sectors. And then within each sector, I have different stocks. Like for our tech, we just have Apple and Microsoft. And the cool thing with M1 Finance is you can have your sectors however you want. Like if you actually go into my real estate, I actually put Airbnb into my real estate. Now it's considered growth stock, and I can just leave it in there if I want to with growth. But I also kind of like it in the real estate because long term, I see this as a great opportunity for the portfolio, and I can do however I want with it. Same thing with retail. I actually have Etsy in there. Again, opportunity for growth stock, but I wanted it in this sector with Home Depot, Ross, Costco, and Starbucks because I felt this was going to be its best place, and I can kind of gear it towards the style that I want to and how I see it fit. So out of the 24 stocks I have, most of these stocks are companies that I plan on keeping for a very, very long time. Things can always change. I always tell people that too. I've actually at one point got up to about 44 shares or stocks into this portfolio and then decided to cut back so that way I can have more ownership in the companies that I do have. So with M1 Finance and a lot of other great platforms, you can actually buy into fractional shares, which is really cool. That's like all this stuff right over here. You can see like Apple, I own 30.31175 shares. So I actually own more than 30 shares. I have pretty much 30 shares and a third of another. And that allows me to build up over time instead of having to buy full shares at full price. And that's a great thing for a lot of beginner investors because maybe you don't have thousands of dollars like I did to be able to invest all at once. If you can do 100, you can buy up to $100 worth of whatever that stock or stocks are in your portfolio. And I absolutely love this. Like one of my favorite things here is this Amazon stock right here. I own half of a share, pretty much, a little over half of a share. And that's because the share price is really, really high. It's about like 3,000 plus as of this recording. But the cool thing is because I was able to get into the stock now instead of having to wait for that full price point, I've at least at this point, unless I sell, I'm up over $147 in this stock, which is up 8.77%. I wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise if I had to wait to buy the $3,000 worth of one share. Absolutely love that. And I think it helps me get really excited about building up even small increments of money when I start, because buying into an ETF is great. I honestly did it myself, and when people ask me all the time, like, hey, what should I invest in? I can't tell people what to invest in because I'm just not allowed to do that kind of stuff. But what I do tell people is what I've done, which is buying into an ETF and then starting off with individual stocks here and there until you feel a lot more comfortable with what you're investing in. So for me, investing into these stocks, you can see them all at this point, except for the last two. One is Etsy, and then the last one is a secret. So you can't know that one. No, it's just cut off on my screen. It's Texas Instrument, but that just helps me kind of, get a good gauge of like the market. Obviously, I'm not in every sector. I'm not familiar with a lot of different things, so I don't invest in those things, which is always really critical, I think, because the things that I am invested in, I do want to keep tabs on, like news articles and all that stuff, which is what I use Seeking Alpha for. I'm not affiliated with them, but I think they're a pretty solid platform. So I put my portfolio here on the platform. So what I could do is if I click on here, I can read news articles from individual stocks. I mean, most stock apps actually do that too, but this one's a little bit more concise with the things that I want to learn from the companies. I can look at their books. I can look at a whole bunch of other metrics that kind of give me a good indication of whether I want to keep these companies or not, or start investing into a new one, which for a lot of investors, it can be a very tricky thing, right? Because when you are getting started, a lot of this information feels so overwhelming, and if that's what you think, you're not alone. I thought so. Many other investors who've been doing it for years and decades probably thought the same thing when they first got started. But getting started and understanding is a big thing. That's why I always recommend people signing up for things like M1 or any other trading platform, just to get your foot into the door. It's okay if you lose a little bit of money here and there because you're learning, and that learning is very, very valuable over time. But there's a lot of channels out there. I don't personally do it myself where I teach you how to learn about the stocks. I just share with you guys my journey, mainly so I can kind of look back at it for myself, and maybe family members can see it, when I have like kids and stuff, where they can kind of just see that growth happen over time. I think it's so cool. But for other channels out there, they actually go over individual stocks and like what they look for, how they decide them. So you can learn from those people as well too. I think you can take great nuggets from a lot of investors out there, to kind of mold it into yourself. Don't take one person's investing style and make that your own, because their investing style might be different than what you might feel comfortable with, and your risk tolerance might be way different than theirs. So always be very cautious of that. Don't buy something just because somebody else has it. Huge mistake that I see happen probably way too often. Honestly, just way too often. Now, before we continue on, if you are somebody who needs to refinance their student loans because maybe you are paying a little too much in your interest, check out my friends Ernest. I'll have a link for them in the show notes down below. They will help you refinance your student loans entirely for free. And it takes only about 2 minutes to check out your rates and can honestly save you thousands of dollars. And you can use that money to invest more into the stock market or extra money into your pocket every single month. And again, I'll have that link in the show notes down below so you can go ahead and refinance your student loans. One thing that I want to show as well too is, like I mentioned, fractional shares is a big thing for me. So like with M1 Finance, I'll just kind of break into this here for a second. So I did a purchase on the 19th for $200. And so I'll buy into these different companies. This one just kind of, I let M1 Finance do its thing, which allows it to deposit and just kind of break itself down into different stocks. So if I bought, like when I bought into Ally here, I bought $12.89 worth of stock, which at its current share price of $47.34, which depending on when you're seeing this video, that price point might be higher or lower. I actually like going back to old videos and seeing the stock prices, because sometimes I'm like, oh man, I really wish I invested more into it based off of the current stock price and what I saw my old videos for. But you can see here, so this bought 0.27 shares, which is about 27% of one share. But that just adds on to what I already own of the stock. And I think that's so cool. I think that's, again, one of my favorite things for building this stuff up. But again, building up your own ETF can be kind of daunting for a lot of people, which is why, again, getting started with other ones is great. If you go onto the research tab here with M1 Finance, there's like an expert pie section, making sure I'm still on screen. You can see all these different options based off of like general investing, planning for retirement, responsible investing, income earners, hedge fund followers, just stocks and bonds, other strategies. You can see the options in here. They're pretty cool. You can see all the different holdings and stuff, or you can go click on funds up here, and these are ETFs fully built out. VOO was the one I had for the longest time. You can just buy into that by itself, honestly. And this, for a lot of people that don't understand this one, this ETF is essentially a culmination of over 500 stocks in the stock market. And so you're very well diversified just in this fund alone, where honestly, for most people, you don't have to worry about many other things in the market. This pretty much does the job. It has a low expense ratio, so you obviously pay a little money in, but the expense is low. You earn a little bit of a dividend, and that moves up over time. You can see here, this has 511 holdings. You can see the top holdings are Apple and Microsoft, which are actually my two top holdings. So they're kind of similar in that light with my, pre-made ETF for myself versus other people's. And then you can see most of it's in US stock. And then you can go to other websites that actually break that down more. Like on Seeking Alpha, as an example, we're going to go ahead and click on here. And what you can do is you can click on the holdings tab, and then it'll kind of break down the top 10 holdings here for you. So you can see both that Apple and Microsoft. It also has Amazon, Facebook, Google, Tesla. So a lot of the same companies I have, but I'm just doing individual. I got Johnson & Johnson, JP Morgan, and all that. And then it kind of breaks down the different sectors as well too, as individuals as well. But to each their own. If somebody just wants to do, index funds and that's all they want to focus on. Like I said, I do that for my retirement because it's easy, it's simple, and I don't have to worry about a lot of other things with it. But when it comes to like my taxable account, I actually do like the idea of like paying attention to these companies, focusing on them, maybe investing into different ones that are not in the, S&P 500, and just doing a little bit of risk, but still being very cautious with how I invest all my stuff. But, like I mentioned, I'll have the link for M1 Finance down below, as well as like the tutorials for setting your account up so you can create your own ETF as well too if you wanted to. I know there are some limitations on how many stocks you can have in there, so keep that in mind. But if you have any other questions, I'm always here to help answer. My main channel has a lot of those tutorials, so you guys can like learn more about those as well too. But as always, the biggest thing you can do to get more excited about your investing and to keep that momentum going, because momentum is a huge thing when it comes to investing. I think for a lot of people, if you don't stay consistent and stay motivated and excited about the process, you might get bored and get out of it and you miss a bunch of opportunities, because it's always better to be in the market than to time the market every single time. I just think you're going to have a better opportunity if you stay consistent. So in order to do that, I think what you're going to be able to do best is watch more content. So I'm going to actually post some more videos right over here for you. Check them out. I think you're going to keep on learning and growing with your portfolio, which I'm so excited for you to build more of your wealth. My name is Dennis, and I'll see you in that next video.